About 10 days ago, I received from Gordon Wright the production version of his paddle shifters. And so I've had them installed now for just about 10 days, and I've had a good chance to formulate an opinion as to how they work, how they feel, how they look, and I'd like to share that with the group here. So he sent them to me free of charge, looking for my honest feedback, and this video is to provide that. It's not really to supplement or complement or replace Gordon's own video showing the installation. Really, I'm approaching it from my own personal observations. And since I did run into an installation issue, I really wanted to share how I approached my concern over the issue and the results, and then suggestions for how to further guarantee good results on your installation should you choose to buy these. And I'll re-emphasize this. They work excellent. They really do have an OEM look and feel. Gordon has nailed the geometry required to make these things feel natural. So if you're at all contemplating getting these and wondering should you or not, I think they're well worth the money he's looking for them. All right, so let's get started, shall we? This video introduction, like most introductions, was filmed last, so I've already got my opinion and conclusions in mind. However, as I unfold now, as the video unfolds, you're going to see other segments that I recorded earlier. So there will be some discontinuity in connection with the verb tenses I used and talking about what my observations are. That's why.
So this is the view from where you sit in the car. My phone's right in front of my eyes right now. And they look great. They feel great. Here I am pressing on the very tip of it where it ought to be the most flimsy. And it feels solid like you would expect it to be. It's not rock solid like it's made of cement. There's a certain amount of flex to it, but it feels proper. Feels factory. Here we are looking at it from the side. And I don't want to take anything away from Gordon's own video on the install process. He showed how you use screwdrivers to pry out the surround, how you pull out the cable and access the buttons. I have not yet done the other side. Here it is, hanging from the cable. Pops out super easy. But I do want to comment on something that has come up on the forums, and that is how to get the old button out of this black plastic surround without breaking the surround. So where it's liable to break is right where my thumbnail is right there. See how it's thin? So Gordon showed using a screwdriver, wedging it in between these two pieces right in there, twisting it, prying the black surround outwards so you can get the pin out. And I just want to say I'm a bit skeptical that you're going to end up with a sound surround once you're done. This piece right here, this black plastic area, is so thin, and the nature of the plastic Mercedes chose for this piece, it doesn't have a lot of yield to it. So I'm very suspicious that there will be some people trying to install these things that will end up with a broken piece right where my thumbnail is, and that's not good. So I want to show you my solution. And I don't want to call it the ultimate solution either, because it only gains 20% more opportunity for success is what I would say. So here's the button that came out of the right side. See what I've done there? I took a Dremel and I cut a piece away from the center. See that right there? What does that allow? That allows you to get some needle nose pliers and pinch it together while simultaneously using a screwdriver to twist those pins out. This gains you another couple of, maybe 1.5 millimeters of motion, of movement in your favor for being able to flip these pins out of those holes and not break anything. There's the slot. I just made it seconds ago. Takes about 3 seconds to cut through the plastic with the Dremel tool. This is what I used right here. Nothing special. Many of us have it. You wouldn't need something like this. It's just this is the most convenient tool I have for getting the job done. And now I can use 2 methods to get the clearance I need to pop these pins out from the holder. I can squeeze with the needle nose pliers and at the same time pry with the flat bladed screwdriver to get the clearance I need here to pop this pin out without breaking this fragile and very thin little area right there. Have a look at the clearance I gain. Can you see it? That's what I'm counting on helping, assisting with getting the clearance I need over here where I'm trying to get the pins out from their pockets. Okay, seconds ago I popped the button out. It just takes more hands to do than allows me to hold the camera at the same time. But you can see the surround there is uncracked. There's not a single mark on it. You see, I can see in the light here there's an imperfection or a line or something. That's not a crack. Make no mistake, that's not a crack what you're seeing. That's just a mark in the plastic that was there prior to. Looking at it on the inside. No cracks whatsoever. And how did I do it? Exactly as I described. I pinched it with the needle nose pliers. I had a flat-bladed screwdriver in there simultaneously and effortlessly popped it out. You can see how Gordon has got a bevel on his switches as well. So those pins are beveled so that they can pop in with the least amount of stress on that flimsy area of the original housing, right? And I had no problem fitting the other one in. I'm not anticipating any problems on this one either. But unfortunately, when it comes time to take these things out, you're going to need to relieve some stress before you try and pry them out, or I'm convinced you're very likely to break that thin area of that black surround. All right, so I've just popped the new paddle into the enclosure, and it snapped in as easily as Gordon's own video shows. This is the lower pin and its pocket. Everything looks good. You can see there's no damage to the housing at all. However, as I look at the top pocket, can you see the crack? So this is an unmodified paddle, and as I press it into place, it snapped. Now, I'll just try and emphasize with the available light I have here, so you can see the position of the new piece here, of the damaged piece. I can push it back into place with my hand. It's very difficult to do one-handed. So can you see how I can close that gap? So that occurred while installing it. There was no crack there as a result of removing the button. So it wouldn't matter if a person cut that portion of the old button off and then came to install the new paddles, you're liable to end up with the same cracked component there. Now, having said that, I've already played with this a little bit here. I've pushed on it, right? You can hear the button clicking, which is down in there. There's the pivot motion. I'm pushing on it pretty hard, and I'm trying to create some stresses on this thing, feeling out, is this thing going to fail on me before I even get anywhere? And my opinion is no. The nature of where the strain occurs, I really don't think is liable to cause. Like, I'm pushing on this pretty hard, and I'm not seeing any kind of deformation over and above the original install crack. So here's my plan. I'm going to take some super glue and some accelerator. I'm going to put the smallest amount of glue in there, hold it in place, use the accelerator to cure it. Now, I have access to carbon fiber and such, so I know I can fix this to the point where it's not going to be a problem. Not all of you will have access to that, but I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to use super glue, which is typical for most of us, and put some glue in that crack there. I'm going to cure it and take this for a drive and see if I can't beat up on it a little bit and report back later. One last fitment issue that I wanted to talk about, and I suppose it makes sense to use this last segment to show how easy it is to pop these things in and out. The back of the steering wheel is kind of spongy right here, and so if you put a screwdriver, just gently press down, you can slip underneath, and that's it. That's all it takes to get the switch out. Excuse me. So the last fitment issue, pull this out a little bit, get it easier to work with. When I first installed them and took it for a test drive, I was quite surprised they didn't work. So I was playing with them before I installed them and everything worked beautifully, and then I go for a test drive, start shifting gears, and it behaves like they aren't connected. So I'm thinking, what the heck? I grab the shifter and I move it left and right, and sure enough, my car shifts like it should in manual mode, but the paddles didn't work. So I come back home, pull them out, and I can tell that they aren't quite clicking the same when they're free like this as when they were installed. So somehow, as they were fitted into the slot, the button, you can see the button there, was slightly depressed. And that partial depression meant both buttons were slightly depressed. And the car didn't know what to do. It shifted normally, but each of these were slightly depressed and not allowing the car to shift. So once I sorted that out of my head, I decided I had to do some minor adjustments. And what I did was I sanded, I relieved the area between where the shifter connects with that button. So there's a plunger there, right? There's a button. And I relieved that slightly with some sandpaper. I didn't take it apart to do that. I used a tool, a spring steel tool that I have. This is it here. It's very thin. And I just slid it in here. And I can't do this with one hand, unfortunately, since I'm holding the camera. But I slid it in between there, and I relieved the back of the switch just slightly. We're talking, I don't know, 10 passes, tops. Sands very easily, and that was all the clearance I needed to get the switches working properly. Had to do it on both sides, but once that was done, they worked phenomenally. So, like I mentioned earlier, the paddles are awesome. They really are, but they are not a straight drop-in. And I think in the interests of full disclosure, that part of the discussion needs to be had. It's dead easy to make them work. I don't think that should be anything that should cause a person to shy away from ordering them, but it's a fact. There's a little bit of fiddling to get them to go. So I'm going to call myself a very satisfied user and sign off now.